Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Rudavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshinim Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamrutatuhe Namaha. Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. Is my voice audible? Is it clear? Very good. Thank you. So we are studying the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, a very important chapter from the point of view of introduction of Lord Krishna as the Lord himself in the Saguna form. That is what we are looking at in here. And very, very many important concepts, like we talked about before, the Guru Shishya Parampara, which is such an important aspect of learning, of knowledge. None of us are experts in ourselves. We always have to look up to that Guru who has all the sattvic qualities. So that aspect of it we saw. The avatarhood of the Lord, as I mentioned, the transition of Lord Krishna from being a friend to that Lord in a Saguna form as Lord Krishna. That is what we saw. And we are looking at finishing the portion on the various kind of bhaktas who take up this path, and everybody has an opportunity to reach the state of liberation. That's what Lord Krishna is assuring everyone, even an atheist, even someone who doesn't believe in the Lord has that opportunity. So we saw that. And today we'll be entering into probably another practical aspect. So we saw the whole section on Chaturvarnas. Today, hopefully, we will be getting into what is really action. You know, we'll define it very simply. And this is extremely important because that will define what is inaction, that is somebody who is not acting, and also what is unaction. There are 3 terms, so we will discuss a lot of those. But coming to reflection time, I wanted to ask all of you, I don't have any question as such on my screen here, but is there any questions related to the Varna Ashrama that we discussed so far? If anybody has anything, please do raise it. So that way, when we finish chanting the shlokas from 3 to 13 today. We will address that. Again, this was a very, very practical, very controversial topic for discussion. And yes, the world is changing, but living in India, I can see the world hasn't really changed a whole lot in many ways. So in that sense, Chatur Varna is a very important topic. I'm sure your memory will get jogged as we move forward. So let's start chanting, and then when we come to the chapter, maybe we will address some of the issues. So today we'll chant 3 to 13, and like I said, we will just chant 10 shlokas every week, the preceding 10.
Hari Om, Sunitha ji.
Yes, Amlan?
Yeah, last week you told that you are going to talk about this Varnashram based on, like, with respect to the family parampara and how it is important. Like we are talking about marriage, people are trying to get in the same family, and then you said that you are going to give some perspective on that.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for reminding me about it. I had almost forgotten it, actually. I didn't write it down, so I forgot it. Thank you for that memory. So we will discuss that. Yes. अथ चतुर्थोऽध्यायः श्री भगवान् उवाच स एवायं मया तेद्य योगः प्रोक्तः पुरातनः भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति रहस्यं ह्येतदुत्तमम् अर्जुन उवाच अपरं भवतो जन्म परं जन्म विवस्वतः कथमेतद्विजानीयां त्वमादौ प्रोक्तवानिति। श्रीभगवान् उवाच बहूनि मे व्यतीतानि जन्मानि तव चार्जुन तान्यहं वेद सर्वाणि न त्वं वेत्तः परन्तप अजोऽपि सन्नव्ययात्मा भूतानाम् ईश्वरोऽपि सन् प्रकृतिं स्वामधिष्ठाय सम्भवाम्यात्ममायया यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानमधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम् परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे जन्म कर्म च मे दिव्यम् एवं यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः त्यक्त्वा देहं पुनर्जन्म नैति मामेति सोऽर्जुन वीतरागभयक्रोधाः मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूता मद्भावमागताः ये यथा मां प्रपद्यन्ते तांस्तथैव भजाम्यहम् मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः काङ्क्षन्तः कर्मणां सिद्धिं यजन्त इह देवताः क्षिप्रं हि मानुषे लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा. And then the shloka number 13, which we have been looking at it. चातुर्वर्ण्यं मया सृष्टं गुणकर्म विभागशः तस्य कर्तारमपि मां विद्य कर्तारमव्ययम्. So only the last line we have to discuss more, and some of the questions. We discussed about how it is Lord Krishna who has devised these 4 varnas. However, he did not devise the varnas in such a way that it would create a real division among people. It was done mainly because a classification is always necessary for us so that we understand truly what our skills are and also the quality within us. Both of these are very, very important in order to perform a job very well. And in here, because the shloka, the preceding shlokas were all about dharma, about how a holistic living has to be established. So how do we create this holistic living if everybody wants to do the same thing? Like, for example, I mean, in India, in the last, I guess, 20, 25 years, we have seen a kind of a revolution in the number of people wanting to take IT jobs. Now, what did that do to the whole place? You know, when we had so many people really just looking for a way of getting into IT, then there were many other professions that kind of got left behind. You know, more of the hardcore skills like math and physics and chemistry and, also main metallurgy. Many of those places, many of those professions, which also is needed, then the country had to do something about, again, reviving those areas so that, and making sure that the jobs were there, and then there were enough, they were also equally paying jobs so that people can get attracted to even those professions. It's a tough situation, you know, when you have to constantly think about balancing that whole a holistic way of living, balancing how every profession is required. So it is with that in mind that Lord Krishna actually devised these 4 classifications, because classification is everywhere. We see the classification in the different plant kingdom and etc. And so human beings also needed that classification. We talked about this. And then we said the basis of classification could be many different things. It could be based on power, based on, you know, like the neighborhoods we have in America, as even in India, of course, also you have those kind of neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods are more rich, some neighborhoods are poor, some neighborhoods are more religion-based. Like, for example, there'll be one particular area where there's very Orthodox Hindus are living, some areas where there are Muslims, Christians. So I see all this here more vividly, but Lord Krishna was not looking at through religion or through caste, through division of within a caste, for example, or power or anything. He very clearly put this classification based on just 2 things. One is activity, what kind of an active person you are, what kind of a skill do you have in terms of karma, but also the other aspect is based upon the individual quality. The quality in terms of, we'll be coming to that today, we'll discuss that, which is based on either selflessness or selfishness. So that is one aspect of guna we will touch on today. But guna, as I will explain it also further on. But karma was based on either inactivity, as in tamas. Like here, I've given this example of a fan which is, totally stands still. It is not powered. Or activity where somebody, believes in just, you need a lot of passion and energy to get things going. Or activity as in a subtle activity, at the high level of subtle activity, so much so that it is not even noticed. So in this regard, sattva is knowledge or looking at things in a thinking way, which many times you would not even recognize that this person is actually doing that thinking. Somebody may look at this person and say, maybe that person is lazy or anything, but in reality, that person is at a high level of a thinking power. So based on this, the karmas could be sattvic karmas, which is thinking, decision making, those kind of sattvic karmas, or rajasic karmas, where the person is leading, running around, and really directing to get the works done, to get anything done. Or tamasic, where the person is actually doing the work. We need a lot of people to do the work. So if you look at even in a company, for example, you have R&D, for example, research and development, you'll have far fewer people in there. Almost like a ratio of, you can say 1:10:100. So for every one person who is of a sattvic quality, who has a thinking or a decision-making quality, you would have maybe 10 managers, 10 leaders who are getting the work done. But then you need about 100 people to actually get the work done. So that's how you would look at, the number of people who have sattvic karma versus rajasic karma versus tamasic karma. And now if you look at the gunas, so as I mentioned, the classification is based upon karmas and based on gunas. So what is sattvic gunas? Sattvic gunas are the gunas of creativity, positivity, clarity of thinking, and intelligence. Intelligence, the ability to go way beyond the things that you see. Having the ability to see the vision, to create a vision. So that is sattvic quality. And then you have rajasic quality, which is, having the passion and excitement to get things done. And also a certain level of, egotism in the sense of, okay, I'm doing it, or a sense of ownership of wanting to do things, anxiety for doing things. And then tamasic, on the other hand, is a quality of inertia or dullness or delusion, that is looking at something but imagining something totally different. That is, having a delusionary view. And ignorance, completely ignorant about something, but yet saying that the person knows it. That is also an ignorant quality. And then having negativity. So these are the kind of qualities. So you can almost look at, sattvic being the positive end, tamasic being the negative end, and in between is this rajasic quality here. So based upon these two gunas, we came up with this chart of looking at, the 9-point diagram. I have 9 points of, if you match the sattvic versus karma versus the quality, you could end up pretty much 9 divisions of people, just in a very simplistic manner. However, we find that beautifully in Bhagavad Gita, there is actually 4 kinds of people that is mentioned. Again, with a combination of these 3 gunas. So combination of 3 gunas leading to 4 kinds of people. But again, we don't have to necessarily take as only 4 kinds of people. Many of us are in between all of this qualities here. So a Brahmana quality, we said, is somebody who has a high level of sattva. That is where the sattvic quality is in front. Actually, Amlan suggested a nice graph, and I didn't have the time to put that in the form of a graph, but I was also thinking about maybe a 3D kind of a graph where, a Brahmana is a person that as soon as the person walks in front, this person is, the sattvic quality shines first. The person is very evident from that. So sattvic, and the person has about 30% rajas, 10% of tamas. A kshatriya quality, the rajasic quality is predominant. So as soon as a person comes, this person is a leader, or this person, will get the work done, because by the person's manner, which, is so much of passion, so much of, energy. So such a person is a Kshatriya. Vaishya person is a person who, again, has Rajas, but is followed by Tamas. So the first quality that comes in, of course, is Rajas there, but it's immediately followed by some amount of tamasic quality, indicating a certain amount of a selfish interest in there. A Shudra on the other person, just looking at the person, you can clearly understand this person is not maybe motivated to work, or is a little, dull in how they perceive things, or is also sometimes ignorant in what is really going on. The person is so self-centered. It's like, for example, if I need something to be done, and I see this person, and if I give it to a Brahmana, the person would say, don't worry about, I will get the work done. Nothing else is important for me. I will make sure that your work is done first. That's how probably a Brahmana would approach it. Kshatriya, on the other hand, if you give the work to be done to the person might say, okay, I'll get it done because I'm going there anyway. I have to do it. So I'll also get it done along with this. So the person has certain amount of self-interest, and the person is willing to do it. Whereas a Vaishya would say that, what is in it for me? You tell me what is in it for me, and I will do it for you. Something like that, a Vaishya person. A Shudra person, on the other hand, will say, I really don't have any time for doing this. So this is just to give you an idea of how these gunas work. Nothing connected with how today we have classified or whatever. So based on this, we have the Brahmana, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas based on the guna and karma. The 4 classifications we saw: Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. And now, based on this 4, if you put this in a kind of a grid, we'll come up with something like a 16-point grid here. 16 points where you have somebody with a Brahmanic quality of sattvic qualities. If you match it with the person of the class here, you can end up with this. So we saw this, and if you had any time to think through of this as to how you can see different people fitting in this category or anything. But again, this is meant only for just understanding the 4 caste system. That is the only reason, nothing, no judgment as such based on this. But then this one, you can also look at it from, and again, I should put this Brahmin and Brahmin quality over here and the Tamas quality down, because this grid in some ways can also reflect the selfishness to a selflessness kind of an grid. You could look at it. So for example, somebody who is a Shudra with Shudrik qualities, for example, could be the most selfish to somebody to a Brahminical quality, Sattvic quality, with somebody who is focused on the clarity of knowledge, the thinking and decision-making could be the most selflessness. So the 4 varnas are therefore based on both activity and attitude. So as we said, somebody who has a Brahmana would be the one where Sattvic guna is the most prominent in such a person. And in such a person, there is a high level of selflessness, where the person doesn't see their own self-interest at all and is there to, just help people. Whereas a person with Rajasic guna would be a person who has a certain amount of an ambition or a selfish ambition as well, a personal ambition to get something done. The third one has prominently a self-interest, and finally a Shudra is one who cannot see beyond herself or himself. The person's total understanding is, I am the world, I need to do, I only, in this world, only I exist, or me and my family exist. And it's that kind of an attitude. Again, this is not a generalization, but just to give you the transition from a selflessness to a selfishness. And I've just shown this in the form of just a very simple diagram here. From selflessness to selfishness, we find that a Brahmana would be totally selfless in their attitude and activity. A Kshatriya would have, portions of the activity in this one being, some amount of selfishness, a high amount of selfishness in a Vaishya, and in a Shudra, you find an extremely high level of self-interest. So this is the idea behind how the attitude and, is given here. Now, as I say, attitude always determines the altitude in a personality. So person with Brahmanic quality really is goes further and faster towards a moksha or liberation, indicating this altitude in their, or progression in their evolution. So I'll stop here for a minute to see if there's any questions, because we're going into the next topic of, we didn't discuss this attitude last time, but I wanted to give you this process here, thought process here. Any thoughts here or?
Hari Om. At a very bare basic level, the more, I mean, if we were to take some example, the most selfless person, or would be like someone like Swami Chinmayananda, Guruji, or Swami Vivekananda, and the most selfish, self-centered person right now is somewhere over there causing a huge havoc, So it's like those two extremes, Brahmana versus that Shudra. It's so obvious, but the whole idea of sitting in this class is not to look at someone else that is obvious, but to look inside and determine our own actions. Where do we fall? Are we being selfish and saying that I am so and so, I'm so great, and getting carried away by our own, own greatness? That is, it's so easy to look at someone else, but very difficult to look at our own actions and say, oh, this was really selfish of me. I shouldn't have done that. And having the strength to go say sorry or apologize, that is the other part. So it's really, but that chart was awesome. It really made me think throughout the day, where all do I fall, kind of. This chart, it's like morning, right out of the bed, maybe I'll be very sattvic, but by the end of the day, it's all gone. So, and so that's this, I like this chart very much. Thank you.
Yes, so you're right. So the thing to keep in mind also is this level of B and B, which we say here, are really those rishis, the Mahatmas, in every religion, actually, not just in Advaita Vedanta. You gave some examples from Advaita Vedanta, but whether it is Visishta Advaita, Dvaita, all the great Mahatmas, all the leader of the caste, not the caste is not the right thing to say, the different paths.
Leaders of the world, kind of, those sattvic leaders that have brought about real change in humanity.
That's right. So that's where, but then even like we talked about last time, the bus driver who is taking children, such a person, he just does the job as he's being told, right? And in that sense, he would be in a Shudra class, but he has such Brahminical quality because the CEO of Johnson & Johnson attributes his success to that driver of the bus, because he says that, when I was going in my bus to school every day, this driver would, give us a high five, would make us feel so good, would tell us, have a great day, enjoy your time in the school, all that, and he says, I attribute my success to that bus driver. So too, for example, there are so many people of very philanthropic nature, people who have a lot of money, who we may classify as a Vaishya, but who are so philanthropic, because of whom this whole world is sustained. This world is sustained only by money, and so in that sense, a person who is so who's fully giving the money away, donating it, such a person is this BV category. Somebody who is extremely, Kshatriya is a leader who thinks about the world. Like, for example, Mahatma Gandhi, right? Mahatma Gandhi could potentially be in this class, actually, because he was very active, but he was extremely sattvic. So that way, this can be the case. So I just wanted to focus on this particular thing here. Yeah.
When you mentioned the bus driver, actually, last year when the schools had opened, and last May, actually, there's a elementary school bus stop right in front of my house, and those parents, the last day, they had bouquets and all. I was wondering, maybe it was for the students just coming home, or no, it was for the balloons, and bouquets were for the bus driver. They had each kid go inside and give the bus driver, because through the pandemic, it was the bus driver who took the kids to school and made sure everyone was staying safe. It was a really touching moment. I stood by the window and I watched the whole thing. I was so overcome by both the parents and the bus drivers,
Great.
Yeah.
Geeta, you have a question?
Yeah. No, you classified Mahatma Gandhi under BK category, right?
Right.
Then who falls under BB category? Like
it would be those, the rishis of who just totally meditated and gave us that knowledge, for example.
Okay.
Something like that. So I'm just again, there are different shades, So there are different shades of people who you might say between BB and BK category, who you could still have, for example, I can tell you that in Chinmaya Mission, right? In Chinmaya Mission, we have so many swamis who do pracharak work, who go out, and everyone, like, Swami Ramakrishnananda, who does so much of work for the temples and everything. He goes around, he travels and everything.
So they come under BK category.
I don't want to, judge anything or whatever, but I'm just giving you an idea of how sattvic they are and everything.
They are sattvic as well as they are rajasic also, right? That's why they go on
activity-wise. Yeah, activity-wise.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Right. And then sometimes we have people who want to just stay in one place and then give the pracharak and then not move, but totally, and then meditate completely, maybe write books and, spend a quality time on knowledge building. So that's where the BB thing comes into place.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, this, like I said, this chart can be looked at it from the selfishness to selflessness also. On one corner on the top, you have the totally selfish kind of a category to one here, selflessness. But in this category, all of them are doing it selfless. So, so all human beings will fit in any one of these kind of in a box like this.
And as Swarna said, we can be different in the morning, we can be different in the evening. Also.
Exactly. That's the other thing, So that's what we can fit in. Now, the question can arise, we have all these four kinds of people. Why are they there? And the whole idea is that this is connected to this dharma samstapana, the paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya dushkritam dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So Lord Krishna has come down to establish the dharma. But how do you establish this dharma? If you have just say, for example, the Brahmana class of people, right? Who may have all these thoughts, the clarity of vision and everything, but they don't necessarily have the leadership skills to drive it. So then you need people who can actually take the knowledge to the masses. So then you need this BK kind of category people, you need to take it to the masses. So everything is connected to Dharma Samstapana, which is holistic way of living. All the 4 categories of people are needed in order to get the world to go around. And this is not just in the case of knowledge, in the case of a company, in the case of a house, even in the case of an institution like this Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth, where we have and you see that, which is so much more evident here. There's so many workers that are here, and I used to sometimes think, why is it in India you need so many people who are doing the work? But it's such a hot country, you have to constantly be cleaning. And so actually yesterday, being Women's Day here, we actually had an event honoring the housekeeping staff. That was our main thing. We totally, for honoring the housekeeping staff, were all women here actually. So they that was the honor for them. So the holistic living aspect is so needed. And again, as an example, even in a simple thing like coffee, right? We need all these 4 ingredients to have really good coffee. The coffee beans have to be the best, the sugar has to be the best, milk and water. And even here we can have, depending upon the different qualities, you can have coffee which is weak, coffee which is strong. So many things in just a simple brand of coffees. Then you can imagine that even in a workplace, to get things going, we can have this different quality as we saw it. And now to answer Geeta's question, yes, every individual themselves are a mixture of these 4 different classifications. Sometimes I feel very sattvic and I feel like studying, and this happens early in the morning, that is possible. But then later in the day, around 9 o'clock or whatever, I feel more like a Kshatriya. I need to move and, expend my energy here to get things going. So, and then probably a little later in the day, I feel a little more tamasic or whatever. I want to go shopping. My mind is more thinking about how am I going to burn this money, and then finally I feel tamasic or lazy in the night. In terms, and all this is as far as activity, but even in terms of quality, we have all these 4 qualities in us. And it's a question of how we can move more and more towards the sattvic qualities. And this is where the sadhanas are given for us, because recognizing that we have the tamasic quality in us or the Vaishya kind of quality. So I need to build it more into the sattvic, Brahmanic kind of quality. And so the sadhanas like japa, etc. is given so I can build that sattvic tendency within me, and build the shama, dhamma, uparama, all those qualities. Geeta, you have a question? No? Okay. So this is again such an important aspect for telling our children too, when children think about why do we have these qualities? What is the reason? Why can't I marry in a different caste or whatever? Is why I wanted to bring this next topic of how a marriage is created, and is caste really assigned by birth in a certain family? So not really. I mean, you see this happening, but how did this really come about, right? Even if you take in a simple example, like, you're going to a party and there are at least about 100 people there, 100 women there or 100 families there. Now, do I just randomly pick somebody who I want to talk to and I just talk? No, I don't do that, right? I try to find that group of people where I'm most comfortable with. and I stay there. How did that happen? How did I find that comfort level with that particular group? It just so happens because in the past, I had developed a certain relationship with that person based on certain interests or anything, right? So this is exactly how really this caste thing grew over a period of time. Like in Hindu cultures, Swami Tejomananda gives this example of people living in a certain geographic place for a long period of time. They start to develop a certain skill set. It could be based on a geography. For example, if I'm living in a place where there is a lot of coal mining, okay, then what happens is I start to see how I can develop this coal into a business. So then more and more people come there, more and more people become coal miners. Same thing with, like we talked about, the IT class, right? If I'm in a particular place where there is an IT company and that flourishes. So over a period of time, this is how really the caste system developed based upon certain occupations. And this is how, like, for example, a priest class really developed. So it was really nothing to do with guna or karma. It is purely based on practical needs, is how this whole thing, a Brahmanic parivar, a Brahmanic family grew up, or an army class of people, or some people, like, for example, jewelers. And I can say that because Ashok, he comes from the family where a part of his family were really into the jewelry business. So there is, people who are part of a jewelry business got married into just a jewelry business because to kind of keep the stake in that business for a long period of time, because if you look at it from a practical standpoint, you need to keep that skills. Not everyone can be a jeweler. You have to have the knack on how to see where the business is going, how the markets are going. It requires a tremendous amount of skills for that purpose. So people got married into families of jewelry, for example, for that purpose. So this is how really marriages got developed, because the thinking is the one that got transferred from one generation to another generation to another. And this is how, marriages took place about wanting to move from a practical reasons for long-term prosperity in this case. And the same thing with maybe the Brahmin class too. It was the sake of knowledge. I can say from the example of music, okay, a practical example like Lalgudi Jayaraman, Lalgudi Jayaraman is a violin, he was a violinist, a very good violinist. His father was a violinist, and his children now are violinists. So, the music was in the air, and maybe in some families you find that the children very naturally picked up that music, and they started developing that art. But of course there may be some families where they were forced to learn that too. That can also be said. So it is more out of interest that they started developing the art and everything. Now, were they really, if you look back from the previous janma, were they supposed to be there, or did they have a different skill? That remains to be how much the person took an interest to develop it, took an interest to come out of it and say, you know what, music is really not what I'm interested. I'm really interested in something else. So they go towards it. But even if you look at it from a point of view of choosing your parents, again, I go back to this beautiful poem by Khalil Gibran. Khalil Gibran, in his poem on children, he says about how that when somebody comes into the world, they choose the parents. It's not that the parents chose that their child has to be in a particular should be doing this, or it is for that reason they have a child. Whatever you do, you can never force really a child to be what you want them to be, unless the child doesn't have that much amount of confidence in themselves and they want to go by what the parents said, right? So Khalil Gibran says beautifully about how the child chooses the parents. So it's possible that coming to this caste or being born in a certain family, the child, due to their own previous vasanas or previous set of karmas, may choose the parents, saying that in this particular lifetime, I think this set of parents will really help me reach my goal. So I would like to be born in this family, So this is what I wanted to mention about how possibly, children are born into a certain caste. So marriages, again, like I said, are made more because of arranged marriages. Arranged marriages are done more because the parents, are looking towards the long-term security of the family, the security of the children. So, they want that particular aspect. Anything more to add? I'm sure all of you will have some things to add, and I would love to hear from you in this regard. Amlan, anything from you? Because you raised the question on...
Last time, you you explained very nicely. I think in general that's what happened, probably, based on previous tendencies and kind of karma, what they do and what they desire. Based on that, probably they kind of get into those kind of family next life. That kind of, I think, based on that, probably arranged marriage makes little sense, right? Based on that point of view, because jewelry's family, probably they'll get those kind of kids who interested to do those kind of work, and when they get married, I think they keep the business and everything running smooth, right?
Yes.
I think that point is very nice. I think you brought out very nicely that point. Yeah, and I was I was thinking about something else before that we are talking about the Varna, about you show one chart in the beginning related to that. I kind of started thinking that Dharma Samstapana Arthai means we are talking about Dharma establishment, which only, I think, applicable to human being. It is not applicable to animal kingdom. That's what I was thinking. The reason is animal is working based on their own dharma, because then they don't need, the problem is with the human. They don't need anything. Like tiger, anywhere in the world, there'll be tiger only. But human beings keep changing because of their intelligence and kind of mindset and tendencies and all this kind of stuff. But animal kingdom is, I think, out of this Varna system, I think, because they are kind of pre-programmed in this world. We are not, right? Yes. I think dharma required for human being, dharma establishment. I think because of that reason, I think Sri Krishna explained that this Chaturvarna is required for human being to establish, or is already there, the dharma, to basically reinforce again that this is the dharma system, and you guys have this kind of tendency, then you fall in this category, and you should be working in with respect to that quality, so that this whole system runs smooth. I think that was the kind of thinking, right?
Correct. So primarily animals do not have, they have a mind. They have a mind, but they don't necessarily have an intellect which can think through things, either positively or negatively,
Yeah.
Correct. So a tiger will not think of purposely harming somebody. His nature is to be strong and vicious, and to for the sake of eating him. So even a tiger, when the tiger is satisfied, would not eat more. Whereas we, having been given this intellect, we use it in both ways. We use it in negative as well as positive,
Yeah.
And this is why we need this aspect of this Chatur Varna system to keep us in check, to let us know that this is what a negative quality looks like, this is what a positive quality looks like, and direct us that way.
Yeah, like the animals, like any kind of animal, whatever they do not have any motive behind it. They just do it by their own nature.
Right.
But human being doesn't do like that. Human being can do anything based on their personal interest, or sometimes selfless, sometimes Rajashik. It can be anything, right? That's what I was kind of thinking to tell.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Anant.
Yeah, Bhagavan Krishna, there are times he was sattvic, and when he has to kill the bad people, he has been a rajasic. So, it changes for Bhagavan also. The only difference is Bhagavan is aware of, what, the state, and then, ultimately he's like, no quality or quality less, or sattvic is the prime quality. Whereas
right,
for humans,
so he was
it is different.
right. He was basically operating in this column here. He was always very sattvic, but activity-wise, he may be going from any one of this for the sake of establishing dharma.
Right. Also, dharma samsthapanardaya in the sloka, and sometimes Bhagavan comes as like Krishna, where he has to go and actually kill the demons, or like a guru, like a Sankaracharya, where he will teach, and then, for example, Sankaracharya was taking out all the, I would say, other kind of dharmas which are not good, and then preaching the Advaita. So it could be any form.
Correct.
One thing I wanted to tell about this aspect. See, apparently it might look like that Krishna is killing somebody or preaching somebody, but as Krishna is kind of God, these are all quality based on the material world, and Krishna is beyond material world. So this kind of thing doesn't apply to him. So even if he is teaching Arjuna, you cannot say Brahman. Even he is killing some demon, you cannot say he's a Rajasic person, because he is beyond all these qualities. Beyond means he is transcendental person with respect to all these things. So
that
we
is
cannot
exactly
put him
what
under this category.
Correct. That is why in the same shloka, we have the second line where he says, Tasya kartaram apimam, addressing exactly what he just said, which both Anant and you, Amlan, said, which is, even though he is the author of the caste and he seemed to be doing all this thing, but he's a karta. Vidhi, know me, akartaram abhyayam. He's not a doer from that standpoint. So it's the example that I can think of here is, when I'm driving the car, I have to put the fuel. Without the fuel, the car is not going to run. Correct? So, but then if I drive fast and I get involved in the accident, do I say that the fuel is responsible? The fuel is not responsible, but, the driver is responsible for it. So too, Krishna is not really responsible in the sense of if there is any adharma or anything that is happening, because we may extrapolate, Krishna killed something, Krishna didn't do this, and so he's responsible for adharma. No, that is not the case. He is that absolute consciousness. At the level of absolute consciousness, he's not doing anything. Just like the fuel in the car, fuel gives the ability to do everything, but the fuel is not responsible for the accidents or anything like that. So in that sense, he's the author of the forecast, but he's not the doer.
That's why we call God as Gunatita, beyond all the doing.
Correct. You're right. Yeah. He's Gunatita. Correct.
Gunatita is the nice word.
Yes.
Also, there is an Upanishad called Garbhopanishad. I happened to heard a lecture on that, and
Uh-huh.
it describes similar to what you mentioned, where a person chooses is the family, the environment, everything, until the ideal environment is reached, like, then only he will take the birth. Otherwise,
Mhm.
he'll wait for the right environment. So all these are
Correct.
discussed in the Upanishad.
Right. And a simple example to think about on those lines is, when I have suppose I'm looking for a job and applying for a job, and I find that I have 10 opportunities. Okay. Now, among those 10 opportunities, I'll obviously choose that particular opportunity which gives me the most happiness out of it, or the most satisfaction, right? So too, I think a jiva in the subtle form, is waiting to make sure that he or she will be born in that environment which is most conducive for he or she to be born into. So that's just as a simple example to understand how this whole process works. So this is another way that sometimes you might think that, how a caste, for example, becomes more powerful or anything, or, maybe the way I've worded here is not right, actually, has caste risen from word power. That's what I meant to say here is sometimes it looks like, the Brahminical caste is kind of overpowered things. And this happened actually, right, which we saw in India, which is why the whole reservation came out to be. The reservation had to be done because the opportunities for this so-called Brahmin class was a lot more at one time. And so, heavy reservations had to come just to bring that balance in some sense. Of course, the scope of whether that is right or wrong is not the scope of our talk today here, but just to give you an idea that, how the wrong interpretation of a caste led to certain consequences which had to be corrected at some point. That's all that I wanted to mention here.
Yeah, one more thing I wanted to tell.
Yes.
Like you get the example of the person, a lot of opportunities choosing for whatever he's good for. But in that case, also the person has to be deserving to get the job. Similarly, if he is choosing a family, he might like a good family, but if he's not deserving, he may not get it. So that point is also there. Like it is not only just he thinks that is my family, I should go and born there, but also he has to be deserving based on his previous karma. So that qualification also he has to earn, he has to deserve to be there, basically. Right?
Yes. He has to deserve, and but it is because he deserves is why he's actually born in that family. Lord Krishna takes care of that, and that is the karma phala data. Why do we call Ishvara as a karma phala data? He takes care of us in that way. He makes sure that we have a certain position based upon our need. No, what is that? Our need, not our want. I may love to be in a certain family or whatever, but there is a need for why I have to be born in that family, because it's good for my evolution. So in that sense, I think maybe what you're saying is deserving comes into play, I think. Makes sense, or did I say it wrongly?
Oh yeah, it makes sense. Like for example, somebody want to be born in Bollywood family, for example. He has a wish, for example. Now he doesn't have. If he has a lot of good karma and deserving qualities, probably he'll born
Yes.
as a son of Akshay Kumar or Shah Rukh Khan kind of thing. And suppose he doesn't deserve, but he has a strong desire to be in Bollywood family, but he doesn't have enough karma or prarabdha to born, then he might born as a dog to be in that family, right?
Okay.
Is a
Possible.
example.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Good. So that sort of brings the end to this particular shloka analysis. And if you have any questions on this, we'll take it as a reflection time for next time. Okay. Is that okay? Or
Only one thought. Can I say?
yes.
No, he said, no, Amlan was saying, if I want to be born in a Bollywood, who are we to decide? We cannot decide anything. It happens, right? So
Correct.
I can want to be born anywhere, right? It's not going to happen that way.
Correct. That is true. So you can imagine how powerful then Ishvara is, right? Ishvara is the only one who decides where I'm going to be born.
Exactly.
Rest, everything is in my hands. But my birth in a certain family is determined by only Ishvara has that ability to know the entire my previous karmas and choose the right family for me.
Right.
But I can choose my next birth if I put all my effort into doing totally good things and everything or whatever. That can determine where I will be born in my next birth.
Right.
And to some extent, I want to say, because again, the amount of effort that I put in is dependent upon my previous karmas too, right? So the next shloka actually now addresses shloka number 14, and actually shloka 14, 15 is rather small, which probably we will have to address it next week because it's already time, right? But I want to give you the reason why shloka 14, 15 comes is to really explain that avyayam aspect of the non-doer aspect of Krishna, because we said as a doer, Lord Krishna has created the caste system, but then as a non-doer, what is his role in this whole area of dharma samstapana? So that's the shloka for next time, which we will talk a little more on aspect of, it's a very simple shloka. The theme itself has come before, but that will be addressed. So we'll stop here. And next week, we'll go into more of the action and inaction. We'll go through these two quickly, these two shlokas. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om, everyone. See you. Have a good evening. Have a good, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hari
Sunitha.
Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you so much.
Hari Om.
Sunitha, next
Thank
week,
you.
our time is changing. That will change for you too.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me. For some reason, I thought it was somewhere in May,
No, this Sunday. Yeah.
This Sunday, okay.
So it will be maybe 6 o'clock for you? 6 a.m.
Yeah,
Oh,
6
okay.
It's even better actually for me.
Or should we move further,
No.
later? Okay.
No, we won't move anything for US. I'm the only one who has to adjust, So okay.
Okay, thank you, Sunitha.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hari Om.
So Amlan, I wanted to tell you, I don't know how to give my comments for your paper, the article that you wrote. I'm still struggling on how to put the topics together.
I think after your class, I got some more ideas, and that 9 blocker you made, I think that is also very, very good.
Okay.
Sunitha, did you know Amlan is doing research on caste system?
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
I'm just kidding. No, I was just kidding.
Sorry.
Actually,
Let me stop the live streaming.